My name is Jake Dalton, and I teach Tibetan Buddhism here. And I'm very honored and excited to introduce to you tonight Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche. Over the past 2 centuries, the Khyentse lineage has been one of Tibetan Buddhism's most influential lines of reincarnated teachers. Rinpoche's previous incarnations were particularly renowned for their mastery of all 4 schools of Tibetan Buddhism, and today Rinpoche continues this rich tradition. Rinpoche was born in the Himalayan country of Bhutan in 1961. At the age of 7, he was recognized as the main incarnation of the Khyentse lineage. He received an extensive training under some of the greatest contemporary masters of Tibetan Buddhism, and today he supervises his traditional seat of Dzongsar Monastery in eastern Tibet and its retreat centers, as well as his new monastic colleges in India and Bhutan, and centers in Australia, North America, and the Far East. But what makes Rinpoche still more exciting are the creative ways in which he's contributed to the spread of Buddhism in the West. After his traditional training in India, he attended London School of Oriental and African Studies, and he continues to be involved in shaping the academic study of Buddhism in the West, most recently by endowing a new chair in Tibetan Studies at UC Berkeley. Before finishing his master's degree in London, however, he became involved with the Italian filmmaker Bernardo Bertolucci. While serving as an advisor to Bertolucci during the filming of Little Buddha, Rinpoche became increasingly interested in the process of filmmaking. And eventually, under the pseudonym Khyentse Norbu, he gained renown as a filmmaker in his own right, directing 2 major movies, the award-winning The Cup from 1999 and Travelers and Magicians in 2003. So tonight we have the pleasure of hearing Rinpoche talk about these 2 sides of his life, his work as a Buddhist teacher and as a filmmaker. The title of tonight's event is Projecting the Dharma, Film and the Transmission of Buddhism to the West. So we'll begin with a talk by Rinpoche, and then we were thinking we would have a sort of discussion period that will be moderated by Professor Robert Scharf from UC Berkeley, who runs the Buddhist Studies program there. So I guess with that, Rinpoche.
It's such a big honor for me to be here. I understand that this is one of the greatest learning centers in the world. And one of the greatest Tibetan scholar, Sakya Pandita, said, one must learn even if you are certain that you will die tomorrow. So I come from a tradition that gives a lot of emphasis in learning. I also understand that this place, this particular town or university has produced many interesting people in the past. And I hope this will continue like that. I have to... The title... The Projecting the Dharma? Projecting the Dharma. Film and the Transmission of Buddhism to the West. Now this is, I think, quite broad, as you can see. Projecting the Dharma. Now there is something that we can discuss. I remember my first visit to the West, first Europe and then America. I think my first ever sight of America was Maine, and then to San Francisco, New York also. I was quite young, so I don't remember so much, but I met many interesting people like Allen Ginsberg, for instance. I was totally new with the West, but from the conversation that we had, my English was very bad at that time, not so much improved still, but from the way from the conversation we had, the projection of the Dharma at that time was so much to do with hippie, LSD, Woodstock. I don't know what those are at that time. Poetry, hallucinogenic, and stuff like that. And also, this Carlos Castaneda, all of that. So that was the projection at that time. And then I came to the America again, and during that time the projection was slightly changed. Especially when I walk around in my robes. Maybe it was a particular town or a place, but that time Tibetan Buddhism, Rajneesh, tantric sex, all of those. So different kinds of projection seems to be happening. And then, of course, again, I came many times, and I must say, I'm quite happy and I'm actually quite proud that over the time, the analytical and critical sort of intellectual approach to Buddhism seems to be paying off. So then I begin to sort of have some sort of a serious dialogue with a lot of people, and like debate, argument, middle way, existentialism, Buddhism. So that's the projection that I've seen. Now, this is still growing, but somehow the world seems to be moving quite fast. So I was talking to Professor Shaft just today. Suddenly, I think the projection about Buddhism in the West seems to do with peace, path to the happiness, and stuff like that. That seems to be the projection. I don't know whether I should be happy about it, because certainly when you are labeled as a believer of a system that makes you happy and that makes you peaceful, you should think that you have been given a credit or some kind of a good thing, compliment. But because I know a little bit about Buddhist philosophy, when I think about the richness and the depth and the profoundness of Buddhism, and it's sort of coming from the argumentative Indian thinking, if Buddhism is narrowed down to just a path to happiness, maybe then this may become a kind of unfortunate obstacle for West to understand more of its richness and profound messages or whatever. Of course, I don't want to be too critical. You know, in Mahayana Buddhism, we believe in skillful means, act of compassion. Out of skillful means, you can use the words such as, journey to happiness, path to the happiness, solution to the happiness, and also somehow, I don't know, somehow I feel that at the moment, everywhere, especially in the West, there is a sort of a quest for looking for decoding some kind of a secret. This, I see this big, bestseller book called Secret, The Secret, something like that, The Secret. I thought maybe I can learn something out of this, so I actually bought it. I even bought the movie. I must honestly tell you, I was a little bit disappointed. Of course, I tell myself, this alone is a proof that there is something called karma. We must be heavily karmically debted with the author of the book such as The Secret. Because I think it's a little disappointing. But Vajrayana, Tantric Buddhism could get categorized into that kind of department. So we have to be careful here. Again, path to the happiness could be a marketing strategy for Buddhist missionaries. And this is, I could close one eye and accept that. But just to let you know that these are the projection, projecting the Dharma, right? This is some of the projections that I have been going through. I have noticed, I have observed. As Jake was mentioning, I went to university in England. By the way, I never finished my master's because I got carried away by film. So, dropout I was. At that time, all my teachers, actually I took comparative religion, psychology and all that. So I actually went to Buddhist class also. So most of my Buddhist teachers, they were definitely, they were not supposed to be a practicing Buddhist. And some of them are, I think, not even, maybe Christian or, follower of other faith. And then I have learned later that this is very much emphasized in the West to be objective. In fact, the reason why there is no properly trained Buddhist scholars, like a Khenpo teaching a Western university, is because Khenpos, Rinpoches like myself, we are deemed as a converter, so we are not qualified, not so much to do with the qualified, but too subjective. So at that time when I was studying, I had a lot of mixed feelings. Why are these people teaching Buddhism? Why can't they find someone else better? Even I could do this better. This is how I used to think. But I must say, after many years, I've changed my mind. And in fact, this afternoon, I had really profound discussions with many young professors here, that in fact, this is, I think, the strength of the approach to Buddhism in the West. The critical, skeptical mind, because Buddha himself said, my teaching has to be analyzed. You cannot take it just because Buddha said so. And I think cherishing this kind of non-subjective is very, very important. So, of course, if you are asking me, I was born in a Buddhist family, in fact a very hardline Buddhist. I was born in a Buddhist country. Everywhere you go, there is something to do with the Buddhism. You cannot escape from Buddhism, basically. You have no other choice, almost. So my projection towards Buddhism is really different. You can say maybe very biased. After many, having said that, I try to be sober, I try to be critical, and I have actually tried to look at Buddhism. If not Buddhism, what would I do? Which spiritual path should I choose? I have tried to read even some of the Western philosophers, and from the way I pick up, again you can say I'm already influenced by Buddhist philosophy, so maybe I'm not the perfect seeker in this regard, but I tend to end up liking people like Nietzsche, right? I was reading Das Spec Zarathustra. I tend to like Nietzsche, and I've recently have this idea, probably the greatest contribution from the West to this world is not technology, not science, but it's anarchism. Because, not the political anarchism, by the way. I was just corrected by Professor Shaft here. Sort of anti kind of system thinking. And so, anyway, I'm just trying to portray my way of thinking about the Dharma. See, this is quite an interesting title, Projecting the Dharma. I don't know how to define this, because the Dharma in Sanskrit, as many of you know, also could mean the truth, among many other things. So it's, what do you call it, oxymoron? Projecting the Dharma, projecting the truth. You are almost not allowed to project, but yet we have to. We have no choice. That's the only language we know, to project. Now, how you project, especially those who are not brainwashed by Buddhist practice, those who are here with a clear, normal mind, how you project Buddhism, I don't know. Maybe we can discuss this later. Now, I think I'm expected to talk a little bit about the film and the transmission of Buddhism to the West. And this, I feel a little bit embarrassed because just because I made 2 films, and I must confess, they both they had it's their success, but it was sort of an accidental success, and there was a little bit of a novelty side of this. You know, Tibetans are kind of endangered species, so whatever they do, even, something drastically wrong, people will sort of have sympathy. So I must say I've been lucky with a film, but there are a few things that maybe I can share with you. Many people ask me, why do you make film? As if, I'm doing something, blasphemy, sacrilegious. I think this is quite interesting to me, actually, always. Especially in the West, many people ask me, and quite shocking sometimes that they ask. Because I think in the West, this is another thing that I project. Sometimes West, and especially America, is even more morally oriented than the East. I think the value of morality is so strong here. So I guess Buddhism, the Dalai Lama, pure moral, pure, something like that, I think they categorize that. And film, limousine, sex, drugs, violence. So I guess they stereotype both angle. And I think this is why many people ask, why you, as a Buddhist, and for that matter, a teacher, a practitioner, making film? Well, first of all, I must say, I don't see filmmaking as something sacrilegious. I mean, and actually, there are a lot of other kind of not so wholesome things that I do, much worse than filmmaking, I think. But I don't see any conflict. To us, Buddhism is like a science. It's a study of life. It's a study of one's individual, self and how we look at the world. So since we study, we approach Buddhism as a science, and film is like a utensil. It's a tool. It's a medium. I don't see any conflict between film and Buddhism. And it is not as if Buddhism, Buddhist scriptures have actually prohibited art or any kind of symbolic or representing medium. As you have seen, there's actually a strong culture and tradition of Buddhist painting, art, and film can be just one of these new modern technology that we can use, and it's the right time, it is a very powerful medium. Now, I want to clarify something here. I think art or let's say statue, for instance, the Buddha statue. Now, of course, different historians, they say different things, but I believe that actually in the early part of history in Buddhism, the actual figure of the Buddha was not really encouraged. Now, there's many different versions of stories. There's a story about how when Buddha went to the Tushita realm, his patron, King Udayana, or Udaya, I think, he was missing Buddha so much that he actually came up with the idea of a painting of the Buddha, and that may be the first ever picture or the representation of the Buddha's figure. Then there's a story about how Buddha actually himself painted a self-portrait, so to speak, and sent to Sri Lanka. But anyway, I think clearly we can understand in the early part of Buddhism, medium, especially to represent the body of the Buddha, was not very much encouraged. For instance, we see even in the, like ancient monuments like Sanchi, instead of the Buddha figure, we see like an empty throne, representing empty throne with a body tree behind, representing the Buddha's enlightenment, long bed with a body tree or sal tree behind, representing the Buddha's parinirvana, empty tree with a deer and the will, representing the turning the wheel of the Dharma. I think the reason why Buddhists did not encourage the Buddha figure is got nothing to do with Buddha is so holy and divine that human beings should not or dare not come their own sort of limited idea of the Buddha's figure. I don't think it is because of that. Because ultimately, especially in the Mahayana Buddhism, like if you read Diamond Sutra, I think popularly known as the Diamond Sutra, Vajracchedika Sutra, Buddha clearly stated how the form of the Buddha is non-existent. And not only the form, even the teaching, he even asked his disciple, has the Buddha taught? And when the disciple said, no, Buddha never taught, then Buddha himself praised the student, saying that, well, now that's the right answer, this is it, Buddha never taught. And see, so ultimately, non-duality, the wisdom of non-duality is at most important. And to express that non-duality cannot be expressed, cannot be represented, cannot be symbolized, I think in the early part, especially the figure of the Buddha was not so much encouraged. But as the time goes by, of course, the human mind is becoming more busy, beginning to rely more and more on symbols. Then, of course, there's lots of Buddhist figures, bodhisattva figures. But I would still say they are symbolic and they are representing the Buddha's figure, not really reproducing, so to speak. They are representing the Buddha's figure, but not really reproducing the Buddha's figure, because the point is this: when you see, this is going back to the projection. I don't know how a Western academia, a member of academia, would look at the Buddha. Maybe for them, he was a great thinker, revolutionarist. He was a very, maybe revolutionarist. But so he, around that time, in the Hindu-dominating society, he was really special. But his body it's like any other revolutionarist, like Che Guevara, Plato, Socrates. They don't have to look good. They can still wear their beret, they can chew cigar. So Buddha, for the ordinary people, Buddha's body does not have to look good. He was a great revolutionarist. He was a great founder of a great system, and that's it. But for a practicing Buddhist, not to say that they are trying to establish Buddha as someone who is divine, but even the Buddha's body has to represent some kind of a non-duality. So if you go through the picture of Buddha, the picture in the mind, if you go through the 32 major marks, so to speak, if you go through each and every one of them, you will, today, we will not even know how to comprehend. Like Buddha is supposedly so beautiful to look at. Why? Because he has 32 major marks. And if you go through each of them, such as, if you go through each of them, you will think that Buddhists are describing a boxy sort of, I don't know, like his body is, the length and the width is same. Step like that. Or he has a webbed hand. Or his earlobe touches his shoulder. Now, if he's, who would like to, let's say, date with someone who has earlobes touching the shoulder? So, again here, non-duality. See, breaking the concept of what is beautiful and what is not, that needs to be crushed for the Buddhist practitioner. So I think there is a lot of that in the Buddhist teachings of description of the Buddha, which is so much tried to explain in the Buddhist scriptures, and not only the scriptures, tankas, statues, paintings, and in many different forms. For instance, then the question is, who is this Buddha? Who is the real Buddha? Because we all want to know the real one. We don't want the fake one. Who is the real Buddha? Then the Mahayana Buddhists will come up with answer like, that's the nature of your mind. Now, we want to see this. How, come on, paint. So then Nyingmapas, like Nyingmapa tradition of the Tibetan Buddhism, would paint a blue Buddha without any clothes, naked. The more newer translations of the Tibetan Buddhism will have another blue Buddha, but clad, ornaments, lots of ornaments, and especially lay person's ornaments like earring, nose ring, bracelets, all of this. And each of them will have their own explanation, like why the Buddha is clad, Vajradhara, the Buddha Vajradhara is clad with all the worldly ornaments. Why does he need earrings? Why does he need anklets? The answer is to symbolize Buddha, the pure, innate Buddha is within us, even though we are surrounded by the worldly matters, such as the ornaments, such as our worldly dharmas, worldly elements. So I wanted to say this because I think you are expecting me, maybe because I made these two films, some of you may be thinking, here this Tibetan Lama might introduce nature of our mind, the Buddha nature, through film. Now, I will tell you, from my point of view, with my capacity, little difficult. But I have quite a good excuse for this, because it takes two, to appreciate all this symbolism. I'm sure the Japanese are appreciating the Buddha, Japanese and Chinese are appreciating the Buddha who is slightly plump. Japanese Buddhas are quite fat, isn't it? Indians are, on the other hand, Indians appreciate more tall, well-built, muscly Buddha. So it takes, I guess it is all to do with the culture. Again, the culture is playing very important role here. I'm not saying that the film can't do it, but if you are asking me, it will be difficult, but it's possible depending on what kind of audience we are showing. I can tell you, for instance, the Andrei Tarkovsky's film called Stalker. I don't know if any of you have seen this. To me, this was the probably even more clearer representation of the concept of Mahasiddha. Because we have been told by so many of our teachers, there's something called Mahasiddha, meaning accomplished one. Those who have renounced the worldly thinking, those who have gone beyond rationalism. Okay, this is another thing. The essence of Buddhism is to break the rationalism, to really go beyond logic. So then we have a fear, well, if we go beyond the logic, then what do we do? How can we fit into the world? How do we talk to the others? Our lamas, our masters, they describe Mahasiddha, the concept of Mahasiddha, accomplished one. And I always had I just cannot imagine Mahasiddha. Always, every time I think about Mahasiddha, I think in terms of all those Telopas, Naropas, great Indian masters of the past, who I, from very young time myself, saw in the Thankas, pictures, very beautifully painted, slender looking. But now I realize if any of these Mahasiddha, this accomplished master, walked into my house, I will not welcome them because they look filthy, they eat raw fish, they misbehave, they don't abide with my rule. So Andrei Tarkovsky's film The Stalker really suddenly opened my eyes and say, wow, Mahasiddha, the stalker, to me was like a Mahasiddha, the accomplished one. And he was having hard time convincing the rational, logical world. I don't know whether you have seen this film. If you have time and if you have nothing much to do, I would suggest, it's a little slow, but you have to be quite patient with this film. So it is possible, I think, to represent Buddha Dharma by the medium such as film. Not only in Buddhism we try to represent main teachings of the Buddha through figures such as Buddha and Bodhisattva paintings, but we also use different other symbols, especially in the Vajrayana. For instance, the symbol of triangle, the triangle shape. This is a very important medium, again, in the Tantric Buddhism. A triangle, it's just a triangle, a simple triangle. Sometimes there will be double triangle, which is called Dharmakara. But the basic triangle is a very important symbol in the Vajrayana. This is a very important medium, okay, if you like. And if you ask, and the triangle is, again, is in some of the tantric practice, this triangle also represents dungeon. This is quite interesting, isn't it? The dungeon. Somewhere where it's also almost like a torture chamber. Okay. Sometimes this triangle also represents the source of everything. Source of everything, where all the universe came from. Okay. So now we want to know, okay, what is this triangle? Where is it? In fact, some of the outer tantric teaching says the triangle exists beneath us. Yeah, this is as far as they go beneath us, under this earth. Now, this is the outer teaching. But then if you really want to know what is triangle, the triangle is actually representation of what they call three doors. The one triangle, it doesn't matter which order, one triangle represents that everything is emptiness. The ground is emptiness. Everything is extremeless. The second point of the triangle represents path should not be path should not have any mark. Path should not have any characteristic. The third triangle represents enlightenment, or the result should never be aspired for. So this is actually the triangle. Okay, ground is emptiness, the ground, and then the path should not have any characteristic. No, I should say, path should not be bound by characteristic. Result, the enlightenment should not be something to aspire for. Now, if you go this way, then we are talking a very big subject. Of course, we are talking about the emptiness, but also the second triangle, tip of the triangle, that path should not be bound by characteristic. And this is a very important, at the same time, something that many Buddhists keep on forgetting. For instance, Buddhism in the West is still relatively new, but in the East, like China, Japan, Tibet, as much as we should really not forget this second triangle, we are always bound by the characteristic of the triangle, such as a yellow hat sect, red hat sect. This is the way to do. Meditation should be only doing sitting up, not sleeping. Meditation, actually, in fact, like meditation is the only thing that the Buddhists do. Something like that. These are all bound by characteristic. And then the result, enlightenment, is something that everybody wants. Remember? Buddhism, journey to the happiness, path to the happiness. What are we looking for? We are looking for happiness. This is a fundamentally actually going wrong if trying to look for happiness using Buddhism is really a self-contradiction, actually. Buddhism is actually not really made for, first of all, when you are looking for happiness, you are already looking for something, so you are aspiring for something. So you are breaking that rule, so to speak. So anyway, this is the triangle. Now, I was telling you many times in the Tantric Buddhism, this triangle is also called dungeon. Now, why dungeon? This is interesting. What they do in the Tantric practice, they try to chase and summon and catch and, bind the ego and then put it inside this triangle. So you put the ego as a prisoner of emptiness, characteristic-less, and non-aspiration. What happens to the ego then? It becomes meaningless. Like once, actually, Bernardo Bertolucci, this was, I remember this, he asked me about Tantric Buddhism. And he said, I'm an Italian. He said, for me, passion is very, very important. Passion. Tell me something about, Buddhism and passion. Then I was saying, well, maybe, I can't really say so much, but according to the Tantric Buddhism, you can keep your passion, but you can't have yourself. if you don't have you, then your passion becomes really abundant, very rich, very not bound by. Right now, our passion is very limited. So, and you can see the way we try to turn on ourselves, so to speak. We are running out of our ideas now. As you can see, everything we tried, and it's becoming so boring. So okay, that's the triangle shape. Just to, since we are, I guess, I'm expected to talk about art and symbolism. Buddhists also use other in fact, in the Vajrayana Buddhism, there is nothing that cannot be used as a medium, as a means to express what the tantric wisdom can be expressed. Any shape, any color, any kinds of tools can be used. So, I find no conflict. In fact, I would say if someone who has a skill can do it, yes, any of this film. Probably film is already a very old medium. Now there's many other things like video games. Maybe any of these can be used as a medium to tools to bring us closer to the truth, take us away from the delusion, and as long as that job can be done with any kinds of tools, I don't see any reason why this cannot be used as a means to transmit the Buddha Dharma, not only in the West, also everywhere, in the East, the whole world. There's one thing you might ask when we talk about the transmission, how important it is, the lineage. Can a person, I don't know, maybe I will stop here and let you ask question, but I have all, I guess you can ask like, can a master record all his teachings on the video or something and then use that as a transmission after 500 years? Will it work? Can it be considered as an authentic lineage, so on and so forth? So, yeah, please, I actually don't know what you really want to hear, so maybe if you want to ask questions, I'll try.
Can I just start with a couple questions which are very film related? You've said a number of times that you're interested in making a film of the Buddha's life. Do you see any problems in doing that? And who would you get to play the Buddha?
Oh, I see a lot of problems in it. Of course, there's all sorts of logistic and practical problems, but also more than 50% of Buddhists are not going to be happy with me. This is for sure. Because they love their Buddha, and they have an idea about Buddha. Each and every one of us have. Right now, Buddha, the most tangible Buddha that we have is this statues made in Nepal or Afghanistan that does not really speak, that does not really blink eyes, is sitting kind of very serene and peacefully on our shrine. And suddenly on the screen, when this moves, I think people are not going to be happy. More than 50%.
And who plays the Buddha?
Who plays the Buddha? Actually, someone with blue eyes. Do you know that? I think Buddha had blue eyes, if you want to know that.
Okay, questions from the audience? Yes.
I would like to know more about your thoughts on reincarnation and whether you believe that.
This is ongoing discussions with this man. Do I believe in it? I believe in it, but I also have a lot of respect to the logic of people who do not believe in it. I believe in it because it's a bit like this. I think my mind is trained to think that reincarnation does not have to be something that is very, very future. Also, my mind is trained to think that time is fake. I think actually the Western scientists have come up with that too. The time is relative. So when you talk about reincarnation, you are talking about time. So if you are talking about like my kind of reincarnation, are you talking about like my kind of reincarnated tulku? I'm one of them, by the way. What?
Like in Hinduism.
I think Hindu and Buddhist reincarnation, the philosophy of reincarnation is similar, I believe. But I was talking about like my kind of Tibetan reincarnated tulku. Now that I have many problems with this. I really believe for the first time maybe the karmic system has made a mistake by Jack was introducing the great Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche, Khyentse Choku Lodre, and I'm supposedly the reincarnation of this. That's one. But then I can also, that kind of reincarnation, in many different parts I have problem. But I do believe the continuity. For instance, let me put it this way. I believe reincarnation as much as I believe that tomorrow's me is a continuation of today's me. You understand what I'm saying? Tomorrow's me is a continuation of today's me. Just continuation. And the continuation is a very vague, relative word for me. Because I cannot really say tomorrow's me and today's me is same. Because if I say that, then I will not need to eat tomorrow because I just had a dinner.
In that connection, in most Buddhist traditions, there are three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the community of monks. In Tibetan Buddhism, they've added a fourth, the guru or the teacher, and I wonder what you think about that, particularly in terms of its transmission to the West.
This is a very important question. Yes. Guru. The word guru it's stained now. It has been stained, unfortunately. But the guru principle, the practice of guru, is actually quite an important in the tantric Buddhist system. And it's really unfortunate that the human gurus have many of human gurus have somehow managed to spoil that beautiful system. actually, you are supposed to, if you look at the fourth, we are talking about the fourth object of refuge. In fact, more than fourth, in fact, according to the Tantric Buddhism, Guru is supposedly more important than the triple gem. So this is a big statement. But all this comes in the context of Guru as the path. Now this is one message that always gets missed out. Because Guru always is referred as a person who dictates your life. But Guru must be really, essentially Guru must be taken as the path. Meaning, okay, it's a bit like this. Okay, what do you want? You want enlightenment. Do you have, okay, can you do it? Okay, what do you want? You want enlightenment. You want it fast or slow? All right? That's the question. Fast. Do you want painless or, stuff like that. So, painless is a little difficulty, actually. Fast, I think, fast. So, actually, to put it very simply, in the Vajrayana tradition, the Guru principle is like, okay, if you want to have fast track, so to speak, then you have a choice to hire a person who will destroy you or not. Basically, that's it. So you actually, order is you first take refuge to 3 gems, right? Triple gems. So you have accepted the Buddha path, path of the Buddha. Now you want the speed. You want to do it very soon because you don't have much time. Now, there's a solution which is the Vajrayana, and within the in Tantric Buddhism, you are allowed, there's a solution, and the solution is you hire or you get a person who will, basically you are asking him to destroy your ego, your emotion and all of that. So that way the Guru becomes the path. And I think that's quite important for the Western Tantric, aspiring Tantric Buddhists to understand. Otherwise, this Guru as a figure is very dangerous, very, very dangerous.
Yes.
5.
The Bamiyan in Afghanistan, the 2 large Buddhas that were destroyed. Do you think that, meaning is it a worthwhile project to try to rebuild those the Buddhas in Bamiyan? There are efforts to rebuild them. It will. I assume part of this mess is that it's going to cost a lot of money, take a lot of time. Is this?
Depends, I think it depends on different people, really. I'm sure it will inspire some people, it will anger some other people. I'm sure it will be a cause of good artistic exercise for some people. And even the destruction of the Buddha statue, I believe that there are some people, because this is what I've heard during the Cultural Revolution in Tibet, that in fact there were some practitioners who were actually quite happy, maybe is not the right word, but there's a great lama called Dzongsar, who was actually master of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who came to the West. And Lama Dzongsar said, to at last, what we couldn't do, the Chinese have done it. So, we don't know. All these are too relative.
Yeah. Yes, at the back. I did. Neither of us got that.
Mm-hmm. I can see your concern, but I'm not so worried. In fact, in a strange way, I also have so much appreciation towards, let's say, grass, marijuana. If not for marijuana, many of these Buddhists are not Buddhist. You understand what I mean? So this book that you are talking about, a few Buddhism here and there, they may have served some purpose. And on the top of that, I don't know whether you are a student here. This is what we have discussed this afternoon. It is the institute like this, where you study Buddhism academically, objectively. It's your job to, I think you will have the responsibility to say, hey, this is going a bit too far. To be, critically thinking. And I think that is always nice to have that. And those kind of books, like a little bit of Buddhism here and there, I think for a while it's not going to stop. I think there's a lot of market. As long as there's an insecurity, there's always going to be a spiritual market.
Yes.
Alaya consciousness.
Alaya Vijnana.
Yes, there is. Some of them.
I think the question is just what is the storehouse consciousness or the Alaya Vijnana?
So your question is, what is it? Okay. Okay. Different schools of Buddhism talks about different things. Okay. I will quote, I think it's Lankavatara Sutra. You see, when Buddha was asked this question, you know how Buddha teach? When Buddha taught, many of his teachings are seemingly contradictory. For instance, in big chunks, like the first sermon, the second sermon, and the third sermon, they all seemingly contradictory. And contradiction was never really looked down as something bad. In fact, many times the language of contradiction is necessary to express certain things. Like in this case, for instance. And forget about different timing of Buddha's teaching, but even one phrase, I think it's Lankavatara Sutra, Buddha said, Semla, sem machidi, sem jirangjini salwao. In one go, in one line, there's already two contradictions. He said, mind. There is no mind. Mind is luminous. So the first line, he was referring almost, like he's indicating there is something called mind. In the second line, the immediate after that, he's negating the mind. And in the third line, he wasn't really negating, but he was not also asserting. He was describing a luminosity. Now, if you are asking me luminosity, do you have time?
Yeah.
If you do good, you will experience good. If you do bad,
Should I just repeat that? And so I think the question is that many religions work in terms of reward and punishment, right? You do good, you get a reward. You do bad, you get punished. Is Buddhism? Are you asking? Is Buddhism fundamentally different from that?
I think maybe the definition of good and bad may be different with all these different religion, and that's okay. I think this is one thing I want to tell you. This is a little bit beside the point. Everywhere I go, because as a religious person, they all try to sort of tell me, all religions are same in the end or in one essence. Everybody, I don't know, everybody is sort of trying to unite the religion, like United Nations kind of. I think that's not necessary. I think all religions should be separate. Chili is chili, salt is salt, sugar is sugar, you understand? People need different things. I think there's no point of trying to put it together, that they are all same, they're all good. But anyway, to get back to your question, definition of good and bad may be different, again, because of this. In Buddhism, definition of bad and good can be different from other religion. I don't know about other religions so much. But let me quote you a great scholar, Indian scholar, Chandrakirti. He said, it's a very important statement he made. He said, those who are foolish will do bad things and go to hell. Okay? First. Second, he said, those who are foolish will do good and go to heaven. And then the third, he said, those who are wise will go beyond good and bad and go to nirvana. So I guess that maybe is Buddhist aim.
Yes. So the question is, does Amitabha's Pure Land, Amitabha is a Buddha in another land right now, does that land really exist, and is a worship of Amitabha in fact the most efficacious way to Buddha to? Yeah, is Pure Land Buddhism then the fastest way to, easiest way?
Yes. How can I say no? Okay. How can... No. My only suggestion is they should really... Okay, how can I say no? But my only suggestion is they should read the description of the Amitabha realm really thoroughly. Because if they read the description of the Amitabha realm thoroughly, you will end up realizing it's describing, what is it called here? New Haven? Is it? I'm serious. Really, I'm serious. I'm not making this up. So sometimes Buddhists do this, they try to make you think it's there, and then slowly make you realize it's actually here.
Are there some films or trends in film that you specify?
Yeah, the question is, are there films or trends in films that Rinpoche particularly likes? Trends, new directions in film.
I see. Oh, new direction. No, actually, I don't like those new direction films so much because they make me depressed. Because the thing is, they make me feel, wow, I wish I could have done that. You understand? So I try not to go. Pardon?
It's. Could I spin off that question a bit? You have said I've heard in print you say Tarkovsky and Sajid Ray
Right.
and Oza. Well, these are all. They're not the current generation so much
No.
that you really seem to take interest in. Do you have any comments on that?
Maybe I'm too traditionalist about these things. I must say, some of the okay. I'm trying to remember. Personally, okay, but a film that makes me personally, I don't know, lose my appetite in a good way. You understand? In a sort of more looking inside. There are few like Deer Hunter, Robert De Niro, right? That film actually made me really think deeply for a long time, because there's this scene of Russian roulette, like this thrill, this addiction to this thrill, this dangerous game. Actually, that film really made me think a lot and really lost my appetite for about a week, because I just keep on thinking how I myself have a complete potential to have that addiction to this thrill. And this was a little scary. And to me, especially being born and bred in a Buddhist family, to have that kind of even potential to, even thinking, wow, yes, I have that I can have that impulse easily, with a right condition, with a little bit of right friends, I think I can get into it easily.
And is that might that be related in any way to Nietzsche and a certain kind of nihilistic strand that you actually found attractive in the West?
Yes, exactly. You make a point.
Yes.
What is the...
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
What are the essential aspects, in your view, of Buddhism which could most beneficially be transmitted in the West today by film or some other kind of media?
Oh, so specific elements in Buddhism that lend themselves to...
Are particularly relevant to the times of the
Yeah. So specific elements in Buddhism that are both particularly relevant to our situation today and also particularly amenable to presentation in film.
Maybe cause and effect? I don't know. I can't really say. Cause and effect maybe is quite important. And just to go a little bit further, maybe something to do with if there's a way to portray in the film, or maybe some other medium, economy and Buddhism.
Could you expand a bit?
Because I think whatever there needs to be discussed with scientists and Buddhists, I think we have reached to a level where there's nothing much to discuss. This is how I feel. But economy and Buddhism are very, very complementary, I feel. I feel economy, I don't know, from a little thing that I have heard and I've read, economy is a really good study of illusion. It's a really good study. So if that can be, if we could really put this across some of the MBA students, maybe like towards the end of their, graduation, this might help, and with a cause and effect, then maybe there is a little change in the ecology and all that.
Okay. We just have time for maybe one or two more questions. It's been a long day for Rinpoche. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the question is whether there's a next film in the works and where and what? Right. What would it be about, and where would it be filmed?
Well, there has been one, and I somehow lost my inspiration, and I think it's called also writer's block, is it? But in my case, I don't know, somehow I lost my inspiration, and I tried to watch some film recently. None of them inspired me. In fact, made me even less interested in the film or all the business of filmmaking. Anyway, I have this idea. I've actually written it down, a few drafts. I'm hoping that maybe within this month I will decide whether to make it or not. It's again set in Bhutan, and I thought this is because it's the right time, I believe, because Bhutan this coming March, actually the king is finally giving his power to the people, and Bhutan is actually beginning with his democratically elected first prime minister. And last year, Bhutan exercised 2 mock elections. Probably Bhutan may be the first ever country who did this, sort of a mock election. And I thought that is so interesting. So I wrote a story around the mock election about how the king actually summoned a particular officer to teach the value of election, and how just all this concept of election, democracy, and all of these kind of a new phenomena, or it doesn't make sense to some part of the world. You understand? So I have a story written down. I'm not that 100% involved or want to involve at the moment.
One more. Yeah.
In Western media, it seems that the idea that the audience has an attention span of about 5 seconds, so that there's always constant change, constant scenery change, motion, movement, and such. Is that kind of like a contradiction to Buddhism, where one tries to be still and quiet the mind?
So let me know if I misparaphrase this, but is there some inherent contradiction between Buddhism and film, because film is really playing toward a notion that our attention span is very short in the West, anyways, and therefore you have to move through things very quickly, and Buddhism somehow that's not something to aspire to?
No, actually, I really want to answer this properly, because this is actually this stillness. I was telling you about how I'm a little bit worried about Buddhism is now becoming a path to happiness, and equally, I'm also worried about Buddhism being sort of known as path of stillness, so to speak. oh, like calm, slow thinking. No, you can think as fast as you want, as crazy as you want, as wild as you want. I think the only thing that Buddhists are demanding, or the Buddhism is demanding us, is you can do whatever you like as long as you know that's what you are doing. But now that's easier said than done, Most of the time, whether we do it slow or fast, we don't know what we are doing, because the act has already become superior than the us.
Okay, so I think on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you very much for coming up for
Thank
today.
you, actually.